While finding the sum or average of values in a range is important, you can also learn other useful information about your data. In this movie, I will show you how to find the minimum, maximum, and median, or middle, as well as the most common values in your dataset. My sample file is the min-max worksheet, and you can find it in the Chapter 2 folder of the Exercise Files collection. This workbook contains a list of dates and the number of meetings that were hosted at a hotel. You can see the dates and the meeting numbers in the cell range A3 through B14. And just looking over the numbers, it looks like 1 is the most common. There was one day with 0, and then there was a day where there were 16 separate meetings, which is unusual for this data set, and I'll show you how to handle unusual numbers like that in a moment. But I'll start by creating a formula in cell E3 that will find the minimum or lowest value from the data in cells B4 through B14. So in cell E3, I'll type an equal sign, and then the function I'll use is min, M-I-N. That's short for minimum. Type a left parentheses, and then I'll select cells B14 or B4 through B14. Type a right parentheses to close out the argument list and enter, and I see the minimum value is 0. I can do exactly the same thing to find the maximum. I only need to change the function. So in E4, I'll type an equal sign and then max, followed by a left parentheses, and I'll select the same cell range, B4 through B14. And those are the cells I'm going to use for all my formulas, so I'll stop giving you the specific references. Right parentheses and enter, and I see the largest value, the maximum, is 16. In mathematics, the average is also called the mean. So even though I've covered this calculation in other movies, I'll do it here as well. So in cell E5, I'll type equal, and then rather than mean, I'm going to type average. That's the name that Excel gives that function here. I'll select my data cells, right parentheses and enter, and I see that the average is 5. Next, I can check the median. The median is the middle value from a set of values if you were to put them in a column and then sort them in ascending or descending order. So first I will calculate the median, and then I will sort the values in B4 through B14 into ascending order, that is lowest to highest, and then we can count to make sure the calculation is correct. So in E6, I'll type equal, median, select my data cells, right parentheses and enter, and I see that the median value is 5. So the mean, that is the average, and also the median are the same in this case. And I can check that by selecting the cells that contain the data, and then on the Home tab of the ribbon, go to the Editing group, click the Sort and Filter button, and then click Sort Smallest to Largest. It says that it found data next to my selection. I don't want to expand the selection. I'll just continue with the current selection and click Sort, and there's the data. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 values. And if I count down to number 6, which is the middle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that is the number 5. If you have an even number of values, then Excel looks at the two that are closest to the middle and averages them. So if Excel were to find that 4 and 5 were the values that were in the middle of this list that was sorted into ascending or descending order, then it would return 4.5, which is the average. Now I'll press Ctrl Z to undo my sort, and my data is back in its original configuration. Now I can look for the most common value, or most common values, in a data set. That's called the mode. You can either look for a single mode, in other words, that is the most common value, or the most common value that Excel finds first in the data set, or you can look for multiple modes. I'll show you how to do both. First, I will click in cell E7, type an equal sign, and then I'll start typing MOD. I'll stop here and describe some of the functions that are available to you. The one at the very bottom, called mode, is around for compatibility purposes. And you can tell that because it has the small information triangle at the bottom right corner of the indicator. That means the function is technically no longer supported, but it is still in the calculation engine because older workbooks use it. If you're working with a newer version of Excel, such as 2013 or 2016, then the developers of the program encourage you to use either mode single or mode multiple. Mode single identifies the most common entry. Mode multiple gives you multiple modes. In other words, if there are ties, if there are 2 of one number or entry and 2 of another, then mode multiple, if you do it right, will return both of them. In this case, I'll just find the most common value, so I'll click mode single and press tab, select my data cells, type a right parentheses to close, enter, and I get 1. And if I look at the data, I see that the number 1 occurs 3 times, so that's correct. But now let's say that I have a tie at the top, that I have only 2 occurrences of 1 and 2 occurrences of the number 5. To make that happen, I will edit the value in cell B9. So instead of it being 1, I'll type a 3 and enter. Also note that my mean changed by just a little bit. So now I have 2 occurrences of the number 1 and 2 occurrences of the number 5. I'll click cell F7 and press the delete key to delete the formula. And now I'm going to select cells E7 and E8. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to find the 2, if there are, tied values for the most common within the data set. And I happen to know that's the case. I have 2 1s and 2 5s, so I'll show you how to make that formula happen. With cells E7 and E8 selected, type an equal sign, and then enter mode multiple. Now select the cells in B4 through B14, and type a right parentheses. Now, instead of just pressing the enter key, you're going to hit a 3-key combination, and that is Control-Shift-Enter. Some commentators call these CSE formulas. The technical name in Excel is an array formula, but I prefer CSE because it gives you a mnemonic for the keys you need to hit, Control-Shift-Enter. So I will hold down the Control and Shift keys and press Enter, and I get my 2 most common values, 1 and 5. If I edit the data set so that cell B9 contains 1 instead of 3, so I'll make that change now and press Enter, then I get a mode of 1 and 1. That's because 1 is the most common. There are 3 occurrences versus 2 for any other number, so it is the most common, and it appears in both spots for mode multiple. So as you can see, you have a lot of very useful tools in addition to average. You can find the largest, smallest, average, middle, and most common values in any data set.